It is my delight to welcome to the stage Florent Kaiser. Take it away.
Good. Quick check. Can everybody hear me? Yes? Great. So I'll let you speak a bit, see the screens a little bit, because I brought some pictures, and I hope you can feel the vibe a little bit. But let's dive right in. I'm taking you today to the Andes. The Andes are an incredible mountain range in South America, over 7,000 kilometers long, spanning 7 countries. There's many reasons why the Andes are so fascinating. I want to focus today on water. So the Andes provide water for the largest part of the South American continent. On the east of the Andes, we have the Amazon River Basin. On the west of the Andes, we have cities, communities, hosting millions of people that depend on the water from the Andes. Now, where does the water in the Andes come from? Well, first, glaciers. Glaciers hold a lot of the water of South America. Now, we all know there's a big problem. They're melting, and they're melting incredibly fast. By 2050, we expect 70% of the world's tropical glaciers to have melted away, causing serious risks to water security in the Andes and elsewhere in the world. The second source of water is high Andean forests and ecosystems. In particular, one tree species that I want to focus on, the incredible polylepis trees. Sometimes they call it the most amazing tree that you have never heard of. Well, here it is. The polylepis trees have a magic power. As you can see, moss accumulates on its branches, and that moss has the capacity to capture humidity out of the air. And that humidity actually over time accumulates in that moss. Those mosses fall onto the ground, and over time this builds incredibly thick sponge-like layers that store carbon, but essentially also water. Over time, not only does it feed into these same forests, but it creates actually wetlands and ecosystems. Now, there is a second big problem after the glacier melt. These forests have been decimated. There's only 1 to 10% left of these forests across the South American continent. Fortunately, there is extraordinary people in the Andes, and my dear friend and co-founder Constantino Auca here, who is an indigenous leader from the high Andes in Peru. Along his tremendous career, over 30 years of working with local communities, he understood 2 crucial things. 1, forests can be brought back through efforts and techniques that apply in the Andes and elsewhere, reforestation, forest protection, and many other things that actually work if we are really getting down to do them. Second, and by far more importantly, Tino had understood how to revive the ancestral traditions of his very own indigenous culture to unite large amounts of people to conduct that kind of work. Through Aini and Minca in local Quechua language, which means basically something close to reciprocity and communal service. The Inca were able, over 500–600 years ago, to actually harness a lot of people to build their empire. Fortresses, aqueducts, the famous Inca trails. Tino had understood how to revive that today, these ancestral principles that are still dormant in the communities, to actually bring the people together to bring back forests. When I met Tino in 2018, he invited me to come to one of what he calls the reforestation festival, the Keunia Raimi, which is the Keunia means polylepis, that tree that we saw before. Raimi means celebration. So he understood how to utilize Aini and Minca, those ancestral principles, to bring together a large amount of people to reforest. What I saw that day blew my mind. Over 1,000 people showed up, and we reforested over 100,000 native trees in one single day. Speak about scale, right? That was, for me, really a game-changing moment. And at the end of the day, I asked Tino, I approached Tino, you've done amazing work. You've done amazing work here in the Andes over the last 20 years. What is next for you? What do we do with this? And Tino replied, well, I want to take this from Cusco in Peru across the country, if not across the Andes. That was a very big motivation for us. I saw a lot of scale together with the other co-founders. We saw an opportunity to help Tino and other incredible leaders to really deliver on the kind of work that we are all collectively seeking. This was the birth of our project, Accion Andina. Accion Andina is becoming a movement, a community-led movement across the Andes that works together with communities by reviving ancestral principles to restore and protect forests, native forests. The main motivation for communities is water. In other words of the communities themselves, a lady just a couple of weeks ago said to us, well, water is life, water is economy, and water is the future of our children. Accion Andina started as a project. It started as a project, as a dream of Tino. It is now becoming a movement. The first starting point with Accion Andina is protecting the forests that are still intact, the native forests of the high Andes. We're roughly looking here at altitudes of 4,000, 4,500 meters in altitude. Very high mountain systems. There's roughly 500,000 hectares left of these incredible polylepis forests. They need to be protected. Accion Andina works with the communities to actually support them in their quest to protecting their lands. And so from creating protected areas that are owned entirely by and run by the communities to actually quite often helping through the protection of these lands gain the title to the very own land for the first time in their history. Which, by the way, as another benefit, quite often helps them to actually fight back on mining concession, extractive industries. In some of the areas, these mining concessions have been given out over the last 40 years in very corrupt measures. So incredibly important to the community's life. The second is restoration. Utilizing to what I said before, the Aini and Minka principle, the community, Accion Andina co-invests into nurseries that are entirely run and owned by the communities, that are collecting, the communities then go out, collect native seeds from the forest, nearby forest, are producing those native seeds into saplings over an 8 to 11 month time period, and at the same time it is creating jobs. It is creating jobs, mostly led by women, these activities in the nurseries. And really we're witnessing now 5 years into the project the tiny small birth of a local restoration economy, which is very powerful in the Andes, especially for the women at this altitude where economic alternatives are very sparse. Then communities in the spirit of Aini and Minka come together in these reforestation days that I mentioned before and plant up to 100,000 trees in one single day. So the other point I want to make here, yes, Aini and Minka allows you to bring a lot of people, allows you to bring a lot of trees, a lot of direct action, and it has clear direct ecological benefit. But there's another very important point here. The revival of these ancestral cultures, the revival of these core principles that the people in the Andes have, and frankly a lot of us have through our own cultures, is a fundamental aspect. The communities have endured the consequences of colonization for over 500 years. By this action, the revival of those principles, there is a certain co-benefit here that is incredibly valuable as an identity, as a collective identity across the Andes, across the entire continent. Accion Andina started as a project. I mentioned this before. We started in 2 countries in 2018. Accion Andina is now spreading over 5 countries already. It has become a movement. We started with a few hundred people involved. Today, just this year, we have over 30,000 people actively engaged in restoration activities during the season. And it is just the beginning. I wanted to touch quickly on my personal quest here. I am obviously not from the Andes, and to me it was a blessing to meet Tino and the many other leaders to actually partner with him to bring the marriage, let's say, of these ancestral principles with modern technologies and approaches to growing projects, to making things sustainable, and so on and so on. I was seeking a personal quest. Can we come together collectively and, given the urgency and the scale of the crisis we're all together in, I know we all feel that somehow, can we come together and respond at the continental scale level to these threats by doing collective action at the continental scale? Accion Andina has become just that. It is a powerful vehicle that drives change across an entire region. Now, let's not be fooled. It is a gigantic task to restore the Andes. It is, we're speaking of 7 countries, thousands of kilometers. Today we have roughly 140 communities involved. We will need thousands of communities to conduct that work if we want to have a chance to really make a difference, especially on water security. However, it's pointing in the right direction. After just 5 years, there are positive signs. The communities themselves are spreading the opportunity. It is not us going around and trying to convince communities to join the Accion Andina. It is actually self-spreading. Community A sees, okay, they're bringing back the forest, we want to be part of that as well. It is becoming a movement. And there is incredible power in that. On the other hand, I cannot say this loud enough every time. Accion Andina is not a tree planting, it's not just a tree planting program in the Andes. One, it is a holistic effort to bring back and protect native forests across an entire continent, with clear ecological, social, and cultural benefits. But second, and this is really where I want to touch on a very important point. Second, for me personally, and I think for thousands of people in the Andes, it is becoming, that project is becoming a symbol of hope. It is becoming a guiding light for the type of collection efforts and collective action that we need to do in the Andes and all across the world. In the Andes, united, by the power of one single tree, bringing together really thousands of people is very powerful. And I actually just flew back here, and my sister, my wife participated in this, that are here today, in this planting, in the planting days. And it is a very powerful act. I want to end with asking myself, what is the power of trees? And as I look at the work that we've done over the last 5 years, I came to the conclusion that the power of tree, the true power of tree, besides all the wonderful benefits, again, ecologic, economical, and many more that the trees directly bring, is actually what you see in them, what they evoke in our own very hearts. And for me, in Accion Andina, the power of trees has a lot to do with strength, with passion, with humility, with endurance, with longevity, with collaboration, and with unity. That is something that you feel every time you look at a tree, or even better, plant a tree. The more I conduct this work, and the more, and we're connected to all sorts of efforts to support it, there is a feeling that is coming out around that a lot of the solutions actually to scaling up the work that we do lie in simplicity. And it comes somehow through that we tend quite often to overcomplicate things. We have created a world that is obviously very complex, but at times our solutions, our response are also incredibly complex. And a lot of times these solutions need to be around simplicity. I find the crisis that we are in cannot be resolved with technocratic approaches. Technology, money, and all of these things, they play a role, an incredibly important role, and all of us here driving these types of solutions, we're in the middle of it. But first and foremost, the crisis we're in is a value crisis. It's a crisis of value, it's a crisis of purpose. And we can learn a lot from the people in the Andes and a lot from the trees on how to overcome this. So I bring that question back to you as a final point. What do you see as the power of trees? Thank you.